right, guys, number 2 says solve by factoring, and you can check yourself in your graphing calculator if you'd like. If you know one of the factors, then maybe you could use some synthetic division or something like that. But since the directions say that you need to factor, then you need to factor, just like on your test, okay? So when we factor, it already has equals 0, so we move on. The calculator will help us know what it says, but we do need to move on to factor just so that we get all the points when you do this on your test. When you look at the factoring section, the first thing is always what on your flow chart? It is the GCF. So look carefully, and the GCF is an x. So that leaves us with x to the third plus 5x squared minus 4x and minus a 20. Okay? So that is our first factor because we did our GCF. Now we have 4 terms left. So when you look at your branches, which one does it fall under? It falls under our 4 terms. So that goes into our box. Just put them in order. X cubed, 5x squared, minus 4x, minus 20. All right, the GCF as we go up the columns is an x and a 5. And then a GCF as we go down the rows is an x squared and a negative 4. So far we have our x from the GCF, we have an x plus 5, and we have an x squared minus 4. And all of them equal 0. All right? But then if we look even more carefully, we find that in this last factor that it actually is a pattern. So if you look back at your factoring flow chart, it's also a pattern. So this breaks down into x times x, and then negative 4 is just positive 2 times negative or minus 2. So this is a factor, and this is a factor. So we have 4 factors, which makes sense because it started with an x to the 4th, so there's 4 solutions. They all are real, so that's nice. And so then each one of these equals 0. Okay, so if you set them all up equal to 0, remember the factors, which are our groups in parentheses, they are the opposite of our solutions or solving. All right, so since they're the opposite, then I can just take the opposite of these. X is 0 because there's no opposite to that. But in this case, x is also negative 5 because that's the opposite if you were to subtract it. X is also negative 2. And the opposite of this one would be a positive 2. So here are our factors, and here are our solutions, or you might hear the phrase zeros or roots. Any 3 of these words, that is what it's looking for. Where do you cross the axis? So if you were to look on your calculator, you would see it cross at those 4 places. But this is how we would factor it in order to show that we also can see it algebraically instead of just graphically. All right, so this is your answer. And we went all the way to the roots or solutions because it said solve, okay? Because it started with an equals 0. So that covers all of those parts, all right?